Hello and welcome everyone to another Security Token Prime webinar here on STM TV. Thank you for joining us, Silvio from Euromobiliare and Lorenzo from BlockInvest. How are you guys today?
Hi, Jason. Thank you so much for having us here at Security Token TV.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming on. Today we're talking about tokenizing institutional funds. This is something that Euromobiliare and BlockInvest have been working on together for a while now, and we're here to find discuss findings, the value add and innovation that the technology of tokenization brings to markets, as well as what else is remaining and challenges, and really getting the market to be ready for this kind of technology adoption. But before we dive into all of that, why don't we start with some quick intros? Silvia, why don't you start real quick and give us some background on yourself and Euromobiliare? I know you guys have 14 billion in AUM, so no small feat, but we'd love to learn more. And then Lorenzo, same thing with BlockInvest.
Yeah, thanks again. Nice to meet you all. I'm Silvio Ventre. I am Head of Innovation at Euromobiliare Asset Management, which is a small medium asset manager in Italy. We are part of an Italian banking group, one of the most important in Italy, which is Credito Emiliano. And as you said, we manage 14 billion euros at the moment. And what about me? I came from an engineering background. So first of being a man of finance, let's say, I am an engineer, computer engineer and management engineer. I worked before working in Euromobiliare in another Italian banking group, one of the largest one. I was responsible for informative systems about financial informations. At the moment, I take care about technological projects. And basically, my main focus is to change the way of working in my company through technologies, and so through digital transformation.
Makes sense. You're leading a lot of the digital asset efforts there, which is fantastic. Obviously, that's kind of where a lot of the opportunity is, especially for asset managers. Lorenzo, what's your involvement look like? Maybe we'll dive into the actual collaboration in a second, but tell us a little bit about BlockInvest and your role in the tokenization space.
Yeah, Jason, always a pleasure to join the show. Now it's the third time. It's better to be in person in Miami, but next time.
Absolutely.
Coming back at BlockInvest, as you know, we are really committed to bring the blockchain technology to financial institutions and help them to use this new technology, which is for us not a tech. It's an opportunity for a real capital market union. Probably something that finally will be able to bridge the gap and bridge also the ocean. Why not? And together with several financial institutions, we are working to let them exploit the regulatory environment that we have in Europe and issue regulated financial instrument in a native way on a real blockchain. Okay, so this is what we do, and this is our commitment. And this is what we're talking about in a while with Silvio also.
Love it. I know you guys are helping a lot on the infrastructure side for sure. And obviously keeping in mind regulation too, and how that plays a role, and how regulators may want to, be involved and whatnot. So, obviously BlockInvest has been doing their homework and building along the way. So I do want to dive into the conversation here. How did this collaboration start between BlockInvest and Euromobiliare, and what were maybe some of the key factors that led to this specific partnership?
Yeah, if I can, I would start from the beginning, because we started basically 3 years ago in Euromobiliare Asset Management. Started by building an organizational area to build a strategic vision and around innovation and digital transformation. So basically, we started since 3 years ago to now, analyzing the opportunity of integrating technologies in general into our way of working, our processes, our operational aspects. So we, at the very beginning, we started around the space of blockchain. We started to participating in some institutional works in Italy. One in particular directed from Assogestioni, which is an association of Italian asset managers, and another one with universities, one of the most important one in Italy. So we started to understand blockchain in general, and we realized that we had to start to develop our own path to develop something in the blockchain area. Starting, of course, by understanding the technology itself. And so that we defined a sort of roadmap that came out with knowing Lorenzo and BlockInvest, because we analyzed, of course, some external partners, external startups or fintechs, in order to develop internally some knowledge and doing some activities. Just because we were starting from scratch by zero, we didn't have the expertise inside of the company, so we had to find externally this kind of knowledge and expertise. So we had the possibility to talk about blockchain and how we can integrate blockchain technologies inside our company, talking to Lorenzo and knowing more about BlockInvest.
Yeah, on our side, it was, I mean, a little bit easier because think about as a startup in the space, one of the few actually involved in South Europe. There are actually very few company with the size of Euromobiliare with an internal knowledge. Okay, I know Silvio. I mean, since like before COVID, probably. So he is a financial guy, but also a crypto guy. So knowing him and knowing what we have done and what they did before meeting us, I mean, made things easier. Because when you find a stakeholder which already know something about the blockchain, what could be the reason why you want to adopt it? It's, I mean, things can move faster. And also because in general, Euromobiliare shows an interesting commitment in doing things in the right way, not just doing something for marketing as other asset manager are doing actually all over the world. So this is what, I mean, this is why we started working together on this process optimization. And yeah, this is where we are right now.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? You have on the one hand, you have people that are exploring this technology. Sylvia, you're helping kind of figure out what or how the asset manager should be approaching this. And then Lorenzo, of course, as we all know in this space, it's a relatively still new space, tokenization. So to have someone that understands the technology and can go ahead and, get on with the program is obviously valuable, and kind of skips a little bit of the education part in the beginning, which is always appreciated in the space. But I do want to dive into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, which is progress, achievements. Let's talk about what you guys have built together and accomplished so far towards fund tokenization.
Yeah, actually, we did a lot of we did a lot of work in the space. We started by studying really from scratch all the operational processes and legal feasibility and technological feasibility and so on. So we started from what we have now, and of course we started about learning something. So the first 2 or 3 steps of the activities that we did during the last months with BlockInvest were about understanding the technology. So we started with a lot of webinar and face-to-face meetings, and so we started with a mutual knowledge and understanding between the companies, because of course we have a complementary expertise. From one side, there is BlockInvest, who has, of course, the technological expertise, and from another one side, we are with a business expertise. So we started about this kind of knowledge transfer and mutual knowledge transfer. Then we started to identify the processes, and we started to map all the processes in order to co-design something new, operational speaking. So we started to design all the workflow of the value chain of issuing a fund in Italy, because of course we were focusing on the Italian law, Italian landscape, and we analyzed, of course, all the legal aspects. So I don't know if you know, but in Italy we have a decreto legge, which is an Italian law, which replicates the European law, which is the DLT pilot regime. So basically, we started studying also this kind of aspect, which is really important for us, because we, at least we have boundaries here in Europe and here in Italy, and we can start building something. So at the moment, we can say we have a co-design of what could be the next step of our value chain. So we started like a proof of concept. We started with a mapping of processes, and we learned really a lot about the blockchain area and environment in general.
What are some of those findings? What did you learn in that process of co-designing the workflow of funds? What were some of those things that you kind of figured out along the way?
What I don't know if Lorenzo could take the question maybe better.
Yeah, as Silvio was saying, it's like it's always interesting, also for us, because you always learn new things. It's because at the end you need to divide between like the Web3 components and the Web2 part. Okay, so the Web3 part needs to be standardized, because it's the part that it's also needs to be approved by the regulators, and it's something that it's the BlockInvest engine. But on top of that, working on the processes, and you can always, I mean, you need to be also somehow flexible to understand the client needs. What are the legacy tool you need to communicate with? What are the constraints that particularly the group has, and how to provide a way of working on this new ledger to the stakeholder that needs to be there. So this is what we have achieved. Actually, it's the understanding that, first of all, it can be done. First things, which is, I mean, you don't need to give it for granted. So it's something that you need to prove. Okay, once you prove that you can do that, you need to prove that it's better. So you need to compare the starting position with what could be the outcome. Okay, you need to weight it. So work on this milestone. You can realize what you can do, and particularly the way we are approaching this thing is not, I mean, disrupting the flows, thinking that, I mean, like someone that thinks that can change the world in a day. It's a step-by-step process. As we used to say, it's our payoff one block at a time. So before you need to structure the things, that you need to think about it strategically. What would be the best fund to launch? Would be an institutional fund. What happens if I want to bring on board the the private but accredited investor. The retail will come for sure later. So it's a long step. You need to have clear the path. You need to have clear that it's not something easy. Even with the tech which is there, it's ready, it's up and running. The processes, the internal procedure, the regulation that you need to follow are there. So to make it again real and scalable and sustainable, you need to work in that way, step by step, milestone by milestone, and working together. So this
So
is
far,
what we achieved. Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense, right? You have to make sure that all the pieces of the puzzle kind of fit before you kind of go all in, right? And it stems from just the very issuance of the token. But to your point on workflow, it's going to be probably distributions, it's going to be NAV calculation, hopefully on chain one day. We have seen it with others, and everything of the sort, right? All the way through eventually, of course, people exiting or trading and stuff like that. With that in mind, you did touch on something earlier that I want to go back to, but before that, just to close out the workflow part of it. Did you guys focus solely on the issuance of the fund units? Did you guys look, what other parts of the life cycle of the funds did you guys explore so far?
Actually, at the moment, we are exploring only the operational aspect, just because we are focusing on the part in which we think there is really a lot of value. By optimizing all the value chain. So at the moment, we are not focusing only on the tokenization, or also in other part of the tokenization. So we are basically we are focusing on the passive part of the fund, and not on the active part. So,
Got it.
At
Got
the
it.
moment. Of course,
Maybe one day they will buy Bitcoin, but not now.
But now, at least
One
not
day
now.
they will buy cryptos. So,
Not
but
financial
now
advice.
but it's not the right time probably this week with the. I mean, I don't want to say Trump dump, but kind of. So it's not going well.
Everyone do your own research, make your own decisions. I might bite the dip. We'll see. But okay,
always buy at the top. So,
yeah, exactly right. Well, let's dive into that then. You know, you mentioned in your last comments before this, Lorenzo, that once it's proven that you can, you know, it can be done, you need to prove that it's better. How are you approaching that? You know, proving that it's better than your traditional counterpart.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you need to visualize what you want to provide. Okay, for now we are focused on the liability part of the fund, as Silva was saying. Okay, like most of the guy out there, except the one that are like buying tokenized asset or buying cryptos. I mean, there are still few tokenized assets to buy. But on the liability side, you discovered that, I mean, and we also discovered together with Silvio that there are a lot of inefficiencies due to the fact that, I mean, while the asset part is used like new tools, we have Bloomberg, we have, I mean, a lot of interesting and high-level things. On the liability part, we have old tool, legacy tools, sometimes even Excel. So there is a lot of manual activities that you can, in many cases, squeeze in smart contract. So we have different models that can do different things. The way you can prove it's better is not just focusing on, okay, I give you something that is able to let you create a data set of information and plug a token which for magic represent a fund share on a blockchain. This is the easy part, okay? But the thing is, tokenizing the process and not just the financial instrument, as also Silvio was saying, on the operational part, gives you the possibility also to wait before like transferring subscription redemption on the tokens, but all the steps that you need to make today to, I mean, just deploy the financial instrument on like a centralized ledger. There could be a CSD, there could be like the centralized database of a depot bank, whatever, but it's full of things that can be automatized, could be removed from the process because what's are there, okay? So you can prove that by showing that you can squeeze all these activities in a unique ledger of data, which is it's better. We like it, it's more secure, but they need to know that just that, then they can, if done for real, so use the blockchain not only for the tokens, they can save time and money. Then we have all the market benefit, but this is another piece. But at the beginning, on the operational part, the improvement that you discover during the way are a lot. Believe me, a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
Believe me, a lot.
Silvio, sounds like you have a thought there.
Yeah, no, completely agree with Lorenzo. I mean, tokenization is the easy part of the process, but tokenizing the operations is the real value behind blockchain, because inside of all the operational aspects, operational processes, there is a lot of value locked since many years to now. Because as you know, the technological aspect, the technological world is really fast. So with years of progress, you have to adopt some other technologies, some other providers. So you will have a really complex value chain or operational chain with a lot of difficulties in order to manage all the aspects of the chain. So with blockchain, you can optimize maybe a lot of those processes, and so you can you are enabled of use this value once you can extract it, once you have the possibility to extract this value.
Makes sense, right? You have a lot of, I mean, in our conversations as well, we've seen that there's a lot of manual data entry and processes that are very, prone to human error when you don't really need it. There's also information asymmetry and dispersion. It's kind of hard to collect everything that you need to be able to effectively, manage some of these funds and other assets. So totally get what you guys are coming from. I do want to take a break here real quick for everyone watching. We do have our upcoming Tokenize This conference in New York City. And it's going to be 3 days of pure tokenization, pure RWAs, crypto and DeFi as it relates to the tokenized securities. But we're going to dive into all of it with some of the largest asset managers in the world, as well as some of the biggest players in the tokenization space. So thank you for joining us for the webinar so far. If you want to get tickets, they're at summit.stm.co. You use STMTV for 25% off. Again, STMTV is the code for 25% off at summit.stm.co. So appreciate that, guys. Let's go to the BlockInvest side. What unique? I know you guys just launched, BlockInvest 3.0 and whatnot. I want to learn more about the unique advantages that platform has over maybe say others in the space. Obviously, there's a lot of providers, so I want to learn more, Lorenzo, about this new version of BlockInvest and how you guys are bringing value to asset managers like Euromobiliare.
Yeah, thanks for the question. But first to reply, we need to ask you something.
Please.
You need to organize an event in Europe. It would be amazing.
Maybe
it's okay
year,
to do that in Miami. Last year was nice in Miami. New York would be even better, but you need to make it in Europe, because and this is also the reason why we developed a new version of the platform with the new regulatory framework that we have. So we can act really as a European, okay? And what you can do is, basically complex, but gives you the possibility to work all over the Europe as this new digital register. It's a kind of CSD, particularly for the fund is really interesting. And this regulatory framework was the basic of the BlockInvest 3.0. So we were lucky enough to talk with our two regulator, the financial regulator, Council, and the Bank of Italy, to, they help us a lot in understanding the law. Okay, Silvio was talking about the different languages that every once in a while you realize you talk. Think about it with regulators. So we were helped a lot, and with this foundation and also with the guidelines that this asset manager association, Assogestione, that Silvio mentioned before, provided to the market some months ago, actually almost a year ago, we took this like two input, okay? We squeezed this two input in smart contract business logic, okay? And we like basically adopted this new engine, the new BlockInvest engine. And on top of that, we have built different model. For sure, the first one was the debt capital market that we used for the first, was also listed on security token market, the first institutional issuance, debt issuance in Italy, actually the second in Europe. Germany always wins, but just for 2 weeks. But for the funds, what we have implemented is not just the basic activities that you need, that you see when you interact with the platform and you want to buy a tokenized fund, but also the whole complexity of the management of the corporate actions. You were talking about the net asset value. Net asset value needs to be on chain, but what happens if there is a mistake in the net asset value calculation? You need to update that. What happens if you need to manage at the Kuyu situation? It happened, okay? Every once in a while, someone died, so you need to manage what happened to these shares. We have a lot of module that are taught for the old stakeholder that need to contribute. So we have the whole hybrid transfer agent model, which is the new thing, okay? That gives the possibility to the asset manager to, exploit the blockchain with more control with respect to what they have right now. There is the whole model of the compliance and the management of the digital identity on chain, what we call block ID, which is something new. So tokenizing the fund share is great, but tokenize the identity, it's something that if you want to scale on the retail market, you need to do that. And these are the main pillars. But also we have created a lot of different set of APIs that makes easier for other stakeholder to integrate pieces of the blockchain and the BlockInvest solution inside their legacy tool. Asset managers itself, banks, depot banks. So our goal is to make things easier, but everything built on top of regulated technical layer.
Makes sense. And actually, on that last point, real quick on the APIs, is this something that you think is going to continue growing on the institutional adoption? Is it going to be where they use other fintechs and leasing, at least the lease model, if you will, rather than building their own, or how do you see institutions integrating with their own existing systems? Maybe Silvia, you can also add some color to that in your approach.
Yeah, actually, it depends. It depends because every asset managers, every institution has a different stacks, different technology stacks. So a lot of institutions are going to link different solutions, so the legacy systems with the new ones. And some other institution maybe can also build inside. A lot of institutions now we can see in the market are building their own infrastructures in order to issue funds in a different way, and also custody and some other activities. It depends by the size of the company, I would say. For example, in our case, could be really useful and interesting to work with some other company like BlockInvest, for example, in order to lead the change of issuing a fund and manage the fund, the passive of the fund and so on. So yeah, it depends by the company, it depends by the size, it depends by a lot of factors, but I think it's a strategy of every company to go in this direction, and that's it. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, Lorenzo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing the same things. Probably depend on what part of the chain you cover. For sure, the distributor, particularly if we are talking about a bank, they will integrate APIs. Okay, for that change almost nothing. It's more the more impact are on the asset management side, on the product factory that change everything. Um, I mean, I hope that everyone will follow Silvio's approach, because the risk here is that the big guys recreate the Chinese wall. So now we have decentralized CSD. If everyone build its own infrastructure that is not able to communicate with each other, we are not really exploiting the blockchain potential. So that's why I think you need to have a piece of code which is done by a BlockInvest on some guys like us, and then a regulated institutional player can integrate APIs in their system, so they can manage the data internally with their like super restricted cloud, with their processes. Probably the time to market would be, not probably, for sure would be much longer. Okay, but I mean, it would be one of the outcome. The important things that we need to avoid is we don't recreate the things just with the new ledger, but in a centralized way. It needs to be open. We need to communicate each other. Otherwise, the capital market union will never be created. If we think about the only things that moves all over the world is Bitcoin, no more than that, all over the world with the same infrastructure, and I mean other tokens on other blockchain. But for the regulated financial instrument now is not. So
yeah, that's a conversation that continues even today, right? It's the private permissions, the public. We see a lot of institutions now starting to go into the public side, even exploring DeFi to the extent that they can, right?
Finally.
I know, right? So we're excited for that for sure. But to your point, it's like, okay, well, you need to have access to the wider ecosystem if you really want, the full benefits of the technology. Or otherwise, to your point, you're essentially recreating here, and maybe there's some definitely some internal savings there for sure. But again, it just depends on the institution's goals and how integrated they really want to be. The other thing you touched on there, Lorenzo, earlier on was Block ID. I'm curious on that, because I think that there's a variety of people that kind of have their own version of on-chain credentials. The biggest pushback I've heard, at least in the market, has been, I'm curious your take on this, is if I'm a different asset manager and I want to integrate and whatnot, and obviously the whole idea of the identification of a person being on chain is that it can be interoperable and just quickly check if they're accredited or not, or if they are, what jurisdiction they're in, etc. But I'm curious, what's going to make a different asset manager trust Block ID, for example, or another, versus another option that's also, on chain? I'm curious as your approach there and what differentiates.
I mean, because we don't centralize the on BlockInvest the onboarding part. Okay, for us, the Block ID is the blockchain component of something which is really huge, particularly in Europe, which is the onboarding. So, which is KYC, AML, transaction monitoring. It's really complex. Okay, and depending on the investor type, depending on the product that the investor is solicited for the investment. So there are, I mean, hundreds of companies that are doing the onboarding online in a great way. So I'm talking about the Web 2 part, okay? So the Block ID is not something which is managed by BlockInvest, but it's something that BlockInvest gives you in the license of the solution, which is basically composed by two things. One is your soul. Okay, you will always be Jason for all the asset managers. Okay, and then you're gonna have a profile. So the asset manager another asset manager don't need to trust BlockInvest, because now I'm onboarded on the Silvio platform, so the authorities are Euromobiliare Asset Management. If I trust the way they do the onboarding, I can reuse the block ID. Otherwise, I can say, okay, let's do it again, because I'm a US asset manager. I need to ask different things, and you basically for the blockchain part, you put the result of the Web2 analysis. The thing is, what we have applied is the profile. So I could have a profile A for a bank A and a profile B with the asset manager B. Okay, so I'm not. You always be Jason, but depending on the counterparty, they will evaluate you probably in a different way. So it needs to be also flexible. But what we have done more is like in the profile, we set like a threshold, the limits, which is related to your risk profile. And this needs to communicate with our token framework. So if the token risk level is 6 out of 7, and your profile is 5 risk level, you will never be able to buy the token. In any case, okay, the transaction will fail. So this is in a nutshell what BlockID is. It's a tool to manage the Web3 component of the onboarding. Okay, I see a lot of players that I think are probably because they are not European. They're oversimplifying the onboarding part. The Web2 work is huge. Most of the time it's done by banks or by huge fintechs that done, again, know your customer with identification, anti-money laundering, and mainly transaction monitoring. It's not something which is related to blockchain. It's something that we need to grab as an input and help regulated entities to bring that threshold, that framework on chain. Because
Got it.
as we know, we cannot put your sensitive data on chain. It would be on the clouds, super protected with double cryptography or whatever. But on chain, you need to have some proof that you are there with your soul, and you can buy something. Okay, you can receive some token.
Got it. That makes sense. So it's really automating the process here, and it sounds like it's more personalized, depending on the client's needs and what they consider they need based on their assets or even the target audience, right? So that's really cool. I do want to move on to challenges, market readiness, stuff like that, because of course, we all love and preach about blockchain and tokenization. You're speaking to the choir here, but we have to realize that we're not there yet. So Silvio, earlier you talked about legal, operational, implementations and feasibility. Curious to hear about any feedback that you got from the internal team and what challenges are still there in implementing tokenization from those two perspectives.
Since the legal perspective are constantly in evolving, I would say that the challenge remains. So basically, the legal complexity. Now, as we were saying before, in Europe, we have a really strong commitment to the legal aspects of this integration of this technology. So basically, the real challenge is to align blockchain innovation with existing regulatory frameworks. Because, of course, now we have in Europe and also in Italy, market in crypto asset regulation, DLT pilot regime, and so on. But those are two regulations that you have to add to some other regulations. And we have the Europe ones, the Italian ones. We are full of regulation, as you know. We are the part of the world that regulates. And then we understood that operational adaptation is key for us, because now we have to understand which components of the chain I was talking before we can optimize by integrating the technology. And of course, there is the part of integrating and sharing information between legacy systems and new systems. We have to decide via API or SFTP connections or whatever. We have to. I'm sorry for Lorenzo, but SFTP is easier to stay at the moment. And then I would say another challenge, but I mean, it's also something of our key findings, let's say, a continued cultural change management. Because, of course, we have the technology, we have the regulation, we know more about the technology at the moment, but it's still evolving. So we have to continue to understand the opportunities by understanding the technologies. And by shifting the mindset of the organization, because now we are talking to do something that we did for the past 20 years, but in a different way, following different regulations. So basically 3 main challenges from my point of view.
Do yours vary, Lorenzo? I do want to dive into a couple of those, Silvio, but real quick, Lorenzo, do you agree with those, or do you have more to add on other challenges that you experience maybe from the tech side?
We faced that. We faced that because when the new regulatory regime was issued, was not, I mean, designed for the blockchain. Okay, it was more like inherited from the traditional finance world, from the MiFID world. So we need to adapt something. But now, at today, okay, March 11, 2025, I will say no more like blocker from a legal point of view. So no more excuses. We have regulation. Finally, we started working as a European. So which is a huge opportunity for this part of the world. So it is there. Regulation is there. It's clear. We got approved twice. We have other clients that are waiting to get approval to be this new digital register. So it's there. From the operational perspective, I would say it depends on the culture of the organization, and it depends on the size. So bigger is the asset manager, harder is, because they have more like procedure. Older legacy tool, most of the time work in different countries. So it's a huge opportunity, but the project lasts longer. It's a matter of operational optimization, check. What you can change, face the internal changes. Probably this is the biggest challenge. The guys that work in the asset manager, since like 35 years and is very close to pension, and why I need to change the way of working. Okay. So the internal challenges is something that you need to consider. But I tend to be like more optimistic because, now everyone wants to do that. It will not be easy for all of them, but in a year from now, we will talk again and we will count. The player that will issue stuff, and it will be probably 10 times the institutional play that we have on chain today.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense, right? It's an evolving, goalpost. It changes over time, just depending on what new regulation comes in, what's out, how asset managers approach it, and of course the comfort level, because of course compliance teams are going to have questions. You have your senior leadership that has questions in terms of, do we need to allocate money to this new venture? How do we prove, to your earlier point, prove that it is better?
You need to make the P&L without knowing what happened, but the P&L is always there. So you need to prove before you start that you will make money. It's not always easy, as you can imagine.
Oh, I know that all too well, but it can be done. I think that the audience might be, and actually I'll pause here real quick once again for anyone that joined recently or in the last, call it 15, 20 minutes. But again, Tokenize This 2025, it's happening in New York City. So we are offering 25% off tickets at summit.stm.co using code STMTV. So thank you for joining us on the webinar today. Obviously share this webinar and to anyone in the asset management space that you think would benefit from learning this valuable insights from both Lorenzo and Silvio here. Lorenzo, Silvio, you guys had certain comments on regulatory environment. I do want to dive into it because I think the audience might be slightly confused. I want to clear it up. On the one side, it's like, okay, you have regulatory clarity in the sense that, like, yes, there's regulation out there. It's kind of clear, how you're going to approach this. But on the other side, you also mentioned that there's EU regulation, then there's Italian specific regulation and whatnot. And of course, you have the sandboxes and so forth. So tell us a little bit more about what the regulatory environment in Europe really looks like and how that's either helped you guys evolve and move this forward, or if it's been how it's also been a hindrance. I know from an, even from an implementation standpoint.
I mean, from an implementation standpoint, it was hard because we actually have two regulations. Okay, one regulates the financial instrument, the DLT pilot regime, and one is the MiCAR, the marketing crypto asset regulation, that regulates everything which is not a financial instrument. Okay, so utility token, payment token, they have also a kind of stable coin which is called e-money tokens, whatever. So everything which is on-chain needs to be in one of the two framework. Okay, what we have explored as the Italian version of the DLT pilot regime, so for the regulated financial instrument, and the I mean, again, the challenge was basically adapt some smart contract logic to this regulation in terms of differences from what happened in the European framework to the Italian one. Not too many. The European framework is called pilot regime. They are extending, but it's again, probably the name was not so lucky because it's pilot. It's not, now we have just one. And instead, in different national legislation, we have many digital registers, particularly in Germany, I would say more than in Italy and in France. But to mention that Italian and German law are a copy and paste. I don't know who copied, but they're almost identical. So that help a lot. And you can move inside European countries. You can passport things. So it's something that, in theory, if Euromobiliare became digital register in Italy, can, manage the business all over the Europe, okay, and place these tokens all over the Europe. In theory, the blockchain is the same all over the world, but one piece at a time.
One piece at a time, or one block at a time, as you like to say.
One block at a time, great. So, it was a challenge at the beginning from a tech standpoint, but now we have implemented. For sure, as Silvio was saying, it's still evolving. So even we will need to change things in the future. We are ready for if this will imply a unique framework that includes also, I don't know, UK, Switzerland, why not US one day? So
anything
it's hard, but it's doable.
Totally, and I appreciate that breakdown because I think the audience would also just benefit from kind of getting the TLDR here, the summary, and really understanding as to why the EU is moving the way it is. Silvio, internally, any challenges there on the regulatory side? Anything that you guys have seen, or has it been really welcoming too from your end?
Not at all. The challenge, it's not about the regulation, it's about all the aspects that I mentioned before, so operational knowledge and so on. I would say that the fact that in Europe we are regulating all those aspects, it's really important for the evolution of the market. and the implementations around the market. So I would say that European initiatives are really helpful to standardize the procedures and facilitating smoother entry and adoption of the technology. I mean, we are seeing in Europe a lot of activities from some institutions. One of the, of course, mostly the most important, the biggest, the largest ones. But it's really important to have a framework, to have different frameworks, and also the boundaries in order to develop something that it's how to say, safe to the client at the end. But in my opinion, we have a lot of we have a lot to do. So we are at the beginning of the path. I mean, there is still a long way to go in this direction. I would say 2 or 3 years to see something really concrete. But I'm happy to have a regulation at the moment here in Europe in order to build something in a safe environment.
I love that. I love that. I'm sure the U.S. will hopefully catch up soon, with a more clear framework. But, we've covered a lot today, guys. We talked about how you guys are tokenizing and really exploring funds and the workflow of the value chain and issuing of funds, right? We talked about operations and legal and compliance, all that good stuff, and how you guys are working together. That being said, to your point, Silvio, as you just mentioned, there's more to go. So I'm curious on, we have around 8 minutes left here, but curious on both of your takes as to the future of tokenization and capital markets, and what's next for the partnership for you two, and what else can we expect? Because I do want to learn more as you guys evolve too.
For the tokenization, I mean, as I was saying before, there is a lot to go. So there's a long way. I mean, in my personal perspective, the real change of the infrastructures of the financial services worldwide, we will have in like 5 or more years. Whenever all the institutions, or mostly of the institutions, are going to issue funds on blockchain and nothing else. I mean, so when the institutions will going to issue funds only on one infrastructure, there will be a real market to build on some different services, different products, and so on. And for what about the collaboration? I mean, we are still working on POC and the design of the processes. So at the moment, I only can say this. I hope to do something more and to tell you something more maybe in the next months, or later by this year.
Fantastic. I really look forward to finding that out. And Lorenzo, same for you. What's next? What do you think that the future of capital markets looks like in terms of coming on chain? Maybe in the next even few years, what does that look like in a perfect world?
What we have seen in the last months, also thanks to this changing in the relationship with US and the way US want to regulate as well this phenomenon. Europe is kind of obliged to work in a better way and to push it. What I see is the evolution of the existing use case that we have seen till now. So the debt capital market will be bigger, much bigger. We're working on several use cases on that, which is something that needs to be tokenized. Securitization that you can securitize a lot of things, including mostly real world assets. So the best way to, I mean, for the buzzword of real estate tokenization probably can be done through securitization of the real estate portfolio. And last but not least, the fund shares tokenization. These are the three main use cases that I see. But the way I see it to like this world to evolve is stop looking at the tokenization and the blockchain like as a fancy marketing stuff. It needs to be treated to be boosted, to be explored, needs to be treated as an infrastructure. It needs to be treated like the cloud was treated 20 years ago. Okay. And how the cloud world exploded, I mean, probably 20 years ago in US and 15 years ago in Europe. So it needs to be treated in that way. So a new infrastructure that can optimize things, okay, when you create product, a new, better infrastructure to distribute things. So a new distribution channel, not just like a create a token and for that I will sell better. No, it's an infrastructure game, which is more secure. And for the non-technical people that we listen, it's much better. I'm not saying that. The biggest corporation in the world is betting seriously on this infrastructure, not on this marketing stuff, but in infrastructure.
With in production use cases, right? So it's like, that you were heading in the right direction here. If levels like that are also jumping in, and you're right, Lorenzo. That's something that we've seen, right? A lot of people just say like, "Oh, a PR announcement for a partnership, a PR announcement for we're exploring." It's like, great, but like, are you actually building? Which I love that you guys are. You guys are taking your time for sure, but at the same time, in the right way. You're taking your time to understand why the operation needs to work the way it does and what you need to account for in a smart contract versus what can stay off chain, for example, right?
Absolutely. But think about it, that I saw like project less advanced than we are together with Silvio, or already announcing stuff. And instead, what we have decided is, instead of announcing tokenized funds, let's work on the processes. Let's work seriously on the model, on the operational side, and then we move forward. Because otherwise, it's not. I mean, a great ROI for the whole movement, right? So it's something that needs to be scalable, needs to be sustainable over the long period of time.
Makes total sense. Absolutely. Once you come out with even louder, we want to have even more findings with your next steps together. And I know the audience is going to be eager to learn about all those and cost savings and efficiencies and all that good stuff, because that helps drive decisions and decision makers to move forward with this technology. And it's obviously in everyone's best interest to know how do we all benefit from this, and why should we all be pushing to go on chain, bring markets on chain. Well, that's fantastic. Silvio, Lorenzo, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fantastic. And like I said, I'm really excited to see what's next for you guys on both ends. And for the audience, again, if you know any asset managers or people in the space or people that need to learn about this space, please forward this webinar over. I think that they'll find some value there from both Silvio and Lorenzo. Gentlemen, thank you both.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.